Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Shorty September 2025. Lovely BookTube event. Throws attention on tiny works, fewer than 200 pages, fewer than 150 pages, fewer than 100 pages. Tiny little things that maybe still pack a punch. I know a lot of these books. I know that I have, among my reading friends for decades, I had a reputation as somebody who gets along best with monstrously big books. And that's true. I read very fast, so that is true. But I have also recommended to those same bookish friends and to a whole bunch of you, a whole bunch of short works. And I made a stack of mass market paperbacks of a lot of those just recently when I was fighting with my books. And I've been just using that stack rather than going hunting for anything else. I could hunt. There are plenty of Shorty September books in the little book room, for instance. But instead, I've just been using these. And last night I picked something that will need no introduction. For readers of a certain generation, it will need no introduction. I picked a winner. Sink the Bismarck by C.S. Forster, the creator of the Horatio Hornblower novels. In this old mass market paperback, which the book came out in the late 1950s, and this paperback is all of 118 pages long. So well under 100 pages when you take away the introductory material and the maps. There are maps all throughout here. And this is the story of the ill-fated voyage of the German warship, the Bismarck, which was big and ferocious and tough as nails and an obvious danger to shipping lanes. And the British could not have that. So they carefully tracked the Bismarck, carefully broke its operational codes, and hunted it to sink it. And that happened throughout the war. This was the bulk of it was 1940, and then the Bismarck was in fact scuttled in 1941, and that happened throughout the war. I think the reason why this thing became so famous there were two reasons. There were two reasons why it became famous before it was legendary. It was turned into legend. One was that the Bismarck was so ominous. It was so foreboding what you had heard about it. Rumors went before it on the open water, as one critic said at the time. Rumors went before it. So even though it was largely untested, that meant a lot. And the other reason why it achieved a semi-legendary status is because during the long ballet maneuvers of chasing and cornering and fighting the Bismarck, it sunk the hood, which was it won't mean anything to you if you don't. Oh, where you going, baby? Frida yoga. Are you going to go over to your chair? There you go. It sunk the hood, which was a major thing. That was a gigantic, in addition to being a gigantic naval momentous moment, it was also a gigantic psychic thing. For that to for the hood to be no more was an amazing thing. It seemed to confirm all the rumors. And then the two reasons why this became legend were, number one, there was a movie, and the movie is quite effective. And number two, I believe is this book. I honestly do. I believe it's this book. This book started out with a different title. I don't know if this edition will tell me. It started out as a young adult. The Last 9 Days of the Bismarck is how it started out. It looked completely different. Didn't have a black and white photo on the cover. It had a color illustration. And it was meant for young adults. It was meant for young boys. It's a dramatization of the hunt for and the sinking of the Bismarck. It's a dramatization of that rather than a history. There have been plenty of histories about this book, including plenty of good ones that we've seen on this channel. This is something other than that. This, I would argue, is not completely fiction. I would argue that it wavers on the line between fiction and nonfiction. A purist sense would definitely call it a novel. It's full of invented characters. It's full of invented dialogue. Naturally, I'm not a purist when it comes to that, since not only do I love, for instance, Alan Eckert's books, but I also love Herodotus and Livy. I prefer the blurred line, but that doesn't mean I'm not incredibly grateful for the scrupulous histories of this weird incident in the war, that set a lot of the terms for naval engagements. Forster dramatizes this by making up speeches and exclamations. He does not change any of the major facts. In fact, he describes what he's doing, and it's very similar to opening lines for Walter Lord, for instance, or Alan Eckert. He writes, "This is as it may have happened. The speeches are composed by the writer, who has no knowledge that those words were used, but the writer has no doubt that similar speeches were made. Except in a few places where the truth is not known or where the records are not yet open to the public," that might be Forster talking about Bletchley Park, which in the late 1950s you would not have been able to disclose a lot of that to the public, I would think. The actual course of events has been recounted. Although many of the characters here represented had no actual existence, they at least had their counterparts. Now, a strict German school dyed-in-the-wool, just-the-facts-ma'am historian is going to recoil from an opening like that. And I agree. We should consider this a novel. But nevertheless, well, we don't have to discuss schools of historicity here. Instead, we can just talk about how effective this is. I believe this was the other pillar of why this story took on such a status, because it is so good to read. You go through it like a shot. It has none of the weight of exposition that so much World War II fiction has. I'm bridling still at that word fiction, but that's all right. We don't know the author doesn't know that these speeches were said, but he's sure that some variation of them was said. And the reason that he doesn't know for most of the cases that he uses is because no one knows. He could be right. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I won't make special pleading. Just, if you can stand that kind of wavering, or if you want to just straight up call this historical fiction, then by all means, find a copy of this book. Like I say, there are better, longer, obviously, and much more exhaustive histories of the Bismarck and her sister ship, and what they did, and their valor, if you want to call it that. The Bismarck was struck over and over and over again by British fire, but the crew decided to scuttle her themselves rather than surrender her or run up the colors or anything like that. They decided to just sink her themselves, and we've seen that on this channel. We've heard other examples of that, the Scharnhorst being another one, but there are others. No matter how you look at it, it's terrific reading. I read this and loved it. I read it at one gulp. I can't remember the last time I read this. I've read other histories of the Bismarck, but I'd really like to find the nice, colorful hardcover that I know is out. Probably that original children's version is collectible. I'm not also 100% sure of the provenance of this version and how much work, how much tinkering Forster did with it between that book, which was originally written for young people, and any later version. I'm not sure of that. I don't have a C.S. Forster biography. If there is one, I've never read one, so I don't know of the textual history of this book. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who wishes it was longer. So there you go. So that's your Shorty September, a little bit of warfare. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.